You guys remember back in elementary school when kids would either get in competition with each other or get in an argument? The first thing that would start happening would be name calling. I mean, it didn't take long. And what you would hear from the crowd of people around, or at least one kid would do it, would go, "Ooh, they cut you down." And the person who did the best cut down was the one who came out on top. Basically, they won the status of the day if they were able to cut the other person down to the point where they were embarrassed and shut down. Because lots of times somebody else will end up just being quiet or, getting embarrassed enough that they leave it alone. And all the comments really didn't represent the person. Sometimes it might represent them a little bit, but it was done in a way that was meant to embarrass. It was meant to bring about an idea about the person, even if it wasn't true. And I've been thinking about this because the discussions I get into on the internet, and I can't help who it is, it's primarily leftists who do it. I'm not going to say all leftists are this way because I don't know. And I can't say all Democrats are this way. I can say people like Tulsi Gabbard is pretty close to the center in her ideology. So she's not one that would do such things. But there's a lot of Democrats and leftists on the internet who name call instead of having any coherent dialogue with somebody or making an argument that actually has substance to it. It's name calling, but now the name calling, it has ideas behind it that are grown up ideas. It's grown up concepts like hatefulness or racism or someone being a bigot or something to that nature. Either way, the concepts adults tend to understand them based on their knowledge of history. So you have the same crowd. What I'm saying is, I think it's the same kind of people that were in elementary school that when they felt threatened or they simply wanted to be the center of attention, they started throwing words, throwing terms that would put somebody down and make them appear on top. And I think that same strategy is being used. If you think today, if you think about how babies develop, babies learn quickly that crying will get them what they want. And then you start aging a little bit, and even little kids will go from crying to using certain terms or even just pouting or looking like they're crying to get a response. They watch what gets responses from people. And what we've noticed as humans is that when you can pull into that emotion, tug on that heartstring somehow, or whether it be trying to get something or to embarrass someone, it still has something to do with the emotion. So tugging on a heartstring is trying to get in touch with the emotion because that usually gets a response. Also, when you ridicule someone, it gets an emotional response. But now, like I said a minute ago, the content is adult oriented, meaning there's a lot of meat to the words that are being used. But the words that are being used now, if you ask somebody specifically what they mean or an example of it, they can't give it. So the terms that are being used, this is what reminds me of elementary school. And I think it's willful being done this way. I don't think that people are this immature, or maybe they are. I tend to think that they're not that mature, but rather manipulative. And because they're manipulative, and remember how they got their way in elementary school, or how they watched somebody else get their way in elementary school, they do that same thing. So, hey, if somebody says something I disagree with, or it makes my own worldview or ideology look silly, the first thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to throw some condescending terms their way, because I know other people are watching and listening. And remember back in school, back in elementary school, the person who could throw the best terms and embarrass the other one the most, regardless of whether it was true or not, that's who got to walk around like they were on top, or the winner, is the best way I know how to put it. So I'm perplexed by what to do with that. Um, I think what I really want to say is people who are like Tulsi Gabbard, if you're a Democrat closer to like her, and just say is if the majority of the Democrat Party is more like her, it might do you a service to start speaking up and representing your party or your ideology. Because right now, to most of us, it looks like we have a bunch of elementary school people leading the country around, leading our culture around as well. We have cultural arguments that are really elementary, and I say that because it's, again, there's terms thrown around because people have such a limited uh, history knowledge. They have such seem to have such limited psychology knowledge on how people think and tend to communicate. The abstract thinking part, people not looking at the bigger picture and tend to be stuck in that concrete thinking. Um, I don't know how you can deal with an elementary school um, type of person who's trying to get their way or to come out on top in a society where things like that really matter to the well-being and the livelihood of most of us. So, I mean, you think back to thousands of years ago how philosophers talk. They put most of us to shame today. And we're advanced in sciences, empirical type stuff, but when it comes to morality, psychology, philosophy, we're going backwards. And I guess the main point here is we shouldn't be functioning like we're in elementary school after we're adults. Think about it.